Okay. Hi, my name is Shane Brody. I'm traveling around the country talking to fellow trans people. Currently, I'm just outside of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and we are in the small town of Yukon. Yes, right by a little lake. Is this a man-made lake, by the way, or is this a yeah?
Man-made.
It looks like a man-made lake because it's pretty arid around here.
Most of the lakes in Oklahoma are man-made.
Yeah, I would think so. Anyway, this project is about like talking about identity as well as politics, religion, the places where people live, how they are within their communities. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my guests here, and they're going to introduce themselves. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Gloria.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I'm Jeff.
Okay.
This is my wife.
All right. What are your own personal identities? Like, I'm a trans man, for instance.
I'm trans man.
Mm-hmm.
I do not like to label myself.
Okay.
I think I struggle a lot with self-identity
Okay.
since my husband's transition.
Oh, yeah, that's very common, actually. Yeah. Speaking of that, how might you have identified yourself prior to that transition?
I identified as a lesbian.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now that's up a little up in the air or amorphous.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
now
it is.
Are you married, or are you in a partnership that is a different kind of partnership?
We are married.
Okay, married. Okay.
Very monogamous.
Okay. All right. And did you get married under gay marriage or just regular marriage?
We got married under gay marriage.
Okay. Great.
We actually had a domestic partnership in Eureka Springs, Arkansas.
Oh, yeah.
Prior to the legalization of gay marriage.
Oh, okay. I heard that was kind of a LGBT queer resort.
It is.
Yeah.
It's beautiful in
Yeah.
Eureka Springs.
Okay.
We absolutely love it.
Yeah. So we have two dogs that we're wrangling here, and a son.
21-year-old.
Yes, a 21-year-old who has to get up very early in the morning. Anyway, so we started talking about Eureka Springs. I've actually been to that area in northwest Arkansas, and yeah, it's really beautiful. I saw really beautiful butterflies there. It seems really like a kind of a wild place, and it's also kind of a magnet resort area for gay people in the South. Yeah.
It's very famous for the LGBTQ community.
Yeah. Surprisingly, I mean, in Arkansas, in rural Arkansas, yeah, that's very different to Oklahoma, though. It's not that far away. I mean, it's just the next state, but Oklahoma feels very different than Northwest Arkansas.
It does. It's very eclectic. Arkansas is very eclectic compared to Oklahoma. Oklahoma's very, it's not as modernized as Arkansas, in my opinion.
Yeah. There's, what would you say is kind of the industry here? I know there's oil and gas, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I think for me personally, I believe Oklahoma is such a Republican state. So our state tends to lean towards, there seems to be a church on every corner.
Oh, really?
And so I feel like everywhere you look and everywhere you go, there's something related to the church.
You know, I haven't really noticed that, but I've only been here for a little over a day. I know that about Boston, actually. Literally, you go on pretty much every block and there's, several churches. I haven't noticed that much here, but I did notice that there were kind of big churches, like auditorium style, what some people call mega churches. There was that kind of feel.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Less of the, like, Gothic cathedral kind of look to things. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of the life churches.
Oh, really?
And churches of that kind of vein.
Mm-hmm.
We have some of the larger Catholic churches. We have some huge Baptist churches. and Lutheran churches.
Okay.
We've got a lot of small shoot-offs that are
Like
separate entities.
like independent.
Like independents.
Yeah, yeah.
Not non-denominational.
Yeah.
Their
Kind of like,
buildings aren't quite as big.
yeah, kind of like a strip mall, like maybe a shop front kind of thing. I actually really appreciate those churches. I've never really been to them, but California has quite a few of those. Like in San Francisco, yeah, you go by and it's like, oh, that used to be a shop, but now it's like a church. And it looks like a rockin' good time, actually. Like people are loudly singing and it's kind of spilling out onto the street. I don't know if that's like that here. Here it seems a little bit more sedate, probably.
It is.
Yeah.
Definitely more sedate.
Yeah.
Yes.
I did notice coming through here that I've just been here a day, but the gas prices are really cheap. Food prices are generally a lot cheaper. I guess the cost of living here is just a lot less than the rest of the country. I've been traveling a lot, and I got to say, this is the cheapest I've seen gas. Yeah.
Well, I was looking in a survey recently online,
Yeah.
and we are ranked number 3 in the cost of living in the United States.
3? As
Number
in
th-
toward the top?
Third lowest.
Oh, third-
I'm
okay.
sorry. The third lowest.
I was like, no way. No way.
Third
Okay,
lowest in
that
the
makes
United
sense.
States
That
for
makes
the
sense.
cost of living.
Where are the ones that are lower than that? Like maybe Mississippi?
I believe Mississippi was
Yeah.
number 2,
Yeah.
and
How about
Alabama, I want to say, was
yeah,
number
I was going to
1.
guess that. Mississippi and Alabama are really very rural.
Yes.
Very rural. Very lush, too. Amazingly lush. Very green if you've never driven through there. Unfortunately, I didn't get any participants from those 2 states. I did
Really?
drive through there. Yeah. I might not have advertised them well enough. I hope to get some at some point. So if you're from Mississippi or Alabama, I'd love to talk to you.
Our friends from our Eureka Springs wedding,
Mm-hmm.
our best man and our best woman, were from Alabama.
Okay, yeah. Actually, one of the people I did interview was from Mississippi, but she lives in Northwest Arkansas now.
Oh.
And that is actually what attracted to her to Northwest Arkansas was that it was more cosmopolitan, right? She loves it there. And why do you guys live here? Are you from here?
So I was born and raised in Edmond, Oklahoma.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty close.
Yes,
That's just
it's
north.
about 20 minutes from Yukon.
Yeah. It's amazing how big this metro area is.
It is.
I mean, I just was in New England and I was like, looking to another state, it looks like it's far, but it's actually pretty short. And then here it's like, you think it's a short distance and it's like, whoa, several miles. It takes like half an hour to get there. Anyway.
I've been here almost my entire life.
Yeah.
I lived in Twin Falls, Idaho for a year.
Oh, very similar in terms of climate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've been through there.
It's beautiful there.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Except they have some hot springs that are nearby there.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I lived in Dallas, Texas for a year,
Okay.
right after high school.
Okay. The
So,
big city.
yes.
Yeah, that is a big, hectic city.
But otherwise, I've been here my entire life.
Yeah. How did you handle going to Dallas, though?
I loved it.
Oh, you loved it. Okay.
Loved it.
Okay.
I was with my best friend
Okay.
from high school.
You did just a bunch of city stuff. You went wild and.
Well, didn't go wild at all.
Okay. All right.
He managed an art gallery, and I managed
Oh.
the apartments in the art gallery.
Nice.
So we just,
Apartments in an art gallery.
Yeah.
Was that for like a art residency or something?
no, not really. It
Okay.
was just, some of them were art residency clientele.
Yeah.
But most of them were just simple, college students or
Okay.
just people moving into Dallas.
Yeah.
They were just little studio apartments.
Yeah.
And there was 18 of them, so
Okay.
it was
well,
nice.
That's interesting. I've never heard of an art gallery with its own like apartment complex. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It was.
I would love to have something like that actually. I do pottery and sculpture, so to have like a studio and then attached housing. I mean, that would be
And
that's
they
like a
had
dream.
one of those there.
Oh, really?
They had
my goodness.
like a pottery studio inside the art gallery.
Wow, that's like a dream or something. If I got my $1 billion lottery ticket, maybe I'll do that. Anyway, so did you grow up here or in
I
this
did.
area?
I was born in Shawnee, which is about,
That's east, right?
that is
Yeah.
east.
Yeah.
And I lived there just the first year of my life.
Okay.
Then my family moved to Oklahoma City with my dad's work. We lived around the Oklahoma City area, but with his job, every time he got a promotion or transfer, we managed to get moved to another area.
Okay.
I was never in a school more than 1 year, maybe 2 at the most.
Okay,
Throughout.
but still in Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely, in Oklahoma. I graduated from Collinsville and then moved to Fort Lee, Virginia. And
That's a big move.
it was a big
Goodness.
move. Yes,
So you know about humidity then from having been there.
absolutely.
Yeah, because it's very dry here. It's very
Yes, it
dry.
is.
Yeah.
I lived in California as well.
Oh, really?
Missouri, Kansas,
Okay.
Alaska,
Oh, yeah.
Fairbanks, Alaska. Yes.
Yeah, that's
I
where I
lived
was
there for
just
about
living.
9 months. Yeah.
I was living in Esther, which is just outside of Fairbanks. Yeah.
I loved it there.
Yeah.
And then
Were you
back
in the
to Oklahoma?
military or something? Or-
No.
No, okay. Yeah, that's what people always ask me, like, were your family in the military? No.
Right. And so I would be somewhere for a little while till I got bored
Okay.
and then pack up and move again. Another part of it, though, is that growing up, I didn't know my grandparents very well.
Oh, yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah.
And so I always made it inside of me. I thought to myself that when I had children, that I would make sure that they were always near their grandparents. They would
okay.
know their grandparents.
Okay, that's great.
And my parents were very good at helping me raise my kids. I was
wonderful.
a single parent.
All right.
Had 2 girls.
Okay.
And so
So you had the extended family helping out. That's
oh,
wonderful.
absolutely.
That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My sister and my brother, my family, everybody was involved in raising
And
my
everybody
kids.
is kind of in this area here?
Well, my mom has passed. My dad still lives in Shawnee.
So since you have a lot of experience with Oklahoma, I'm imagining that you've probably seen a lot of changes. I've been looking on Google Maps at different places. Like today I went to Costco earlier today, just because I like to check out how Costco's are different and, get some food, whatever. And I noticed that it wasn't on Google Maps. Like the pin was there, but the actual buildings. So I'm imagining that there's a lot of building that's going on here, especially if you can, support a couple Costco's here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Constantly new buildings are going up.
Really?
Housing is springing
Really?
everywhere.
Okay. I did notice that I did a few deliveries and kind of out in what maybe you might call the boonies or something. Suddenly there would be like a kind of a well-to-do housing complex that had like gates on it and stuff, and like a guard and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, big houses too, big, very big. Yeah.
Sounds like Edmond.
Yeah, it was in Edmond, actually. Yeah. But it was kind of like far out, far
Yeah.
removed.
Yeah.
So, how would you describe like the different parts of Oklahoma? Since you have such a deep history here, you've lived in a lot of places. Like, there's Tulsa, and then what are the other regions of Oklahoma? Because I don't think a lot of people know a lot about Oklahoma if they haven't been here.
Okay, so there's Tulsa, Norman, Stillwater, Oklahoma City. There's some of the more known areas. The smaller towns just really aren't known.
Yeah.
Oklahoma's really kind of a laid back
It really is.
area. People are just here to live their life
Yeah.
and move on. So a lot of people, love living in what a lot of people would consider the sticks. But there are people who do gather towards the more cosmopolitan areas. There aren't very many cosmopolitan areas. Most are just small towns or small cities.
Yeah.
There are still some reservations here.
Oh, yeah. Lots of them.
Lots of
Yes.
them, yes. And there's a really high population
Yeah.
in the reservations as well.
I also noticed that there was a big military base here, or at least one.
Well, we have
Yeah.
in Midwest City, we have Tinker Air Force Base.
Okay, yeah.
In Lawton, we have Fort Sill.
Uh-huh.
In Enid, we have Vance Air Force Base.
Okay. So does that sort of flavor the culture of this place as well? Like it's a heavy military presence, do you think?
I don't. To me, it doesn't. Now, if you live around those areas, it does.
Yeah.
Lawton, especially.
Okay.
Lawton is a heavy military area.
Yeah. I would say Fairbanks was too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Because you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
There's
They had the Air Force
Eielson,
Base.
Richardson. It's quite,
Yeah.
Yeah. So in town, you would often see people in their uniforms, like just going to McDonald's or whatever, you know. And I think a lot of infrastructure of the place was actually built for the military, you know, to make it easier for them. Yeah, so kind of, I guess I'm wondering what do you do? What do you do for, you know, work and that sort of thing? What kind of industries are you guys in?
Well, currently, we are in school at American Truck Training.
Oh, you both are?
We are.
Oh.
We are.
Are you going to do tandem driving?
Team driving.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That's a big deal. Lots of people are doing
semi-trucks.
that. Yeah.
So
good luck with that.
We are so excited. We are in our 4th week.
Okay.
It is.
Have you done any backing up yet?
Not yet.
Ooh,
so
that's the hard
next
part.
week.
That's the hard part.
That's what people say, but
Yeah.
we are in our stressful week for us.
Okay.
Because we are doing what's called in-cab training.
Right. And you have an instructor there who's
We have an instructor, an amazing instructor.
Mm-hmm.
And we're learning about air brakes and doing these air brake tests.
Right.
And it is very stressful because it's memorization. That's all it is memorization at this point.
Well, at some point you'll develop muscle memory.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, if you just have to do it over and over and over again. Right.
Well, I'm struggling with the gear shift. I've never driven a manual a day in my life. And they took us out on the road the other day to drive this truck.
Yeah.
And my husband here did an amazing job.
Great.
And here I am, I'm like, I don't get this pattern. I'm like not grasping this pattern at all.
Okay.
And I'm like...
So you need to do some homework.
They told me watch YouTube videos.
Yeah.
I tell you what, today in fact, I was sitting there... I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I was sitting there watching these YouTube videos and I was like, I do not get this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those YouTube videos are pretty good, though.
That's
I mean,
what
they take you through it. Yeah.
And this morning, I was sitting there watching YouTube videos, and I was like, "Why can I not get this? It's not. It just wasn't there for me."
Yeah.
But that's because you're more of a hands-on.
I am.
Yeah.
I have to do. I can't just watch and see. I have to do.
So that's great. That's a growing field.
It is.
Right. So and then you guys can stay together.
Yeah.
And work, and even maybe take your dog with you.
Yes.
There are some companies that are really good about that because they really need drivers, so they let you take your pet with you.
We even already have 2 job offers, and we haven't even graduated.
Right. That's how it is. Mm-hmm.
Some of the companies even have rider policies where you can have like a rider who is at least over 10 years of age.
Sure.
Ride along with you.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I think there's like a deposit that you have to put down for that person to ride with you for insurance purposes.
Sure.
But, you know, different companies have different policies, of course.
Right. That's cool. Are you thinking about moving up with different kinds of certifications or whatever?
So we've lightly discussed the situation.
Yeah.
I would like the hazmat and the tanker certification.
Yeah.
He, however, is not so keen on the hazmat tanker certification, right?
Well, actually, I wanted to do the hazmat. I said no.
All right, controversy on my
You wanted to do
podcast
tanker.
here.
I did not want to do tanker.
See,
Work it out. Work
See,
it out.
No, we are. We
Work
are.
it out.
We are.
Work it out.
We've been together for almost 20 years,
Okay.
and we very, very, very seldomly argue. He's my best friend in the entire world.
Oh, that's sweet.
It-
Yeah.
It's more generally just playful.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
just like that. That was
Right.
more playful than
I
argumentative.
can tell. I was just making fun of you guys.
Okay. Well, people do that a lot.
Yeah. Well, you guys are very sweet, so it's very easy to kind of like poke at you a little bit.
But there's he graduated the year I was born. Graduated high school the year I was born.
Okay.
Nice.
And people tease me that I've been teased multiple times that they're like, hey, are you his mom?
Oh no.
And I'm like, do I look like his mom?
Right. Well, there's something that I've noticed with trans people. We often don't look our age or something. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's some sort of rejuvenation from the hormones, or maybe it's just like a joy that exudes from us or something. I don't know what it is.
Absolutely. I was going to say that myself. The rejuvenation of feeling better about being our authentic selves and accepting our authentic selves. For years, I avoided mirrors. I could never look at myself in a mirror.
I hear you.
And since I started passing more often, being observed as being a cis man, and not a trans man or cross-dresser or whatever, you know, I feel better about myself.
Yeah.
I'm finally the man I always wanted to be.
Yeah. When did you start, by the way?
I didn't start until 2016.
Okay, so that wasn't that long ago.
No.
And then just, I know it's a delicate question, but how old were you when you started?
Well, I was born in 61. You do the math.
Okay. Okay, so you're about 10 years older than me.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're well into adulthood when you started.
Absolutely.
See, I love that, though, because right now, or the last few years, it's been a lot easier for, let's say, younger people to start, which is a beautiful thing, right? Because, people feel safe enough. There's enough healthcare out there. There's enough good therapists that people don't have to wait till later in life, and they feel safer and they come out earlier. But it's also great when people who are older, also feel safe enough to finally come out.
Actually, along the time that I was about 23, I started talking to a therapist about not feeling not feeling like my body.
Sure.
And I didn't have a word for it. I was a lesbian at the time.
Right, and that would be what, the early 80s?
Yes. Middle 80s.
Yeah.
So,
and were you in the lesbian community then? Okay.
I was in the lesbian community.
And what I remember, so I came out as a lesbian in the late 80s, and I came out into communities that were very lesbian separatist.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So can you talk
They
about
still
that?
are.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
Like what that's about?
Sure.
Yeah.
I lived in Springfield, Missouri at the time.
Okay.
And Springfield, Missouri at that time did not have a very large lesbian community that was out and about.
Sure.
And they were very cliquish. And if you weren't a part of the
Was
clique...
there a bar there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There were two
lesbian bars?
gay bars.
Oh, gay bars. Okay.
Gay bars.
Okay.
The one that I went to most often was actually open to both gay men as well as lesbians.
Because I don't think people understand this, because now we have LGBT bars where everybody goes to, but it used to be extremely separate.
Very much.
Very separate.
The most popular bar, however, was strictly a lesbian bar.
Great, yeah. That's cool that you even had one.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of cities didn't even have like a lesbian bar. Yeah, right.
But the lesbians didn't want the gay men sitting at their table.
Sure.
Gay men didn't want lesbians and even in their,
right.
near them.
Right. So how did the separatism come in there? Did you experience some of that, like where women were talking about that?
They were like, if a guy would come up to the table and ask if he could sit, they're like, you really don't belong here.
Okay.
So.
And were these straight men or
Straight men or gay men.
Okay, or gay men.
Or gay men.
Interesting.
Yeah, because even back in those times, the gay community was very separatist.
Oh, yes.
The gay men had their areas, the lesbians had their areas.
Yeah.
Like I said, I started talking to a therapist, and I was raising my kids by myself. Mm-hmm. And people were getting in my head about, what it would do to my kids. And suddenly having...
Who was saying that to you?
Lesbian friends.
Okay.
Lesbian friends. And some of my male friends. Okay. My gay male friends.
And you knew that this was an option. How did you know that?
Well...
Because, there wasn't the internet, wasn't
right.
around. There were a few FTM groups around the country, like in San Francisco, and I believe there was something going on in New York. But it wasn't well communicated. It was like newsletters, like actual paper newsletters that people would send out.
Right.
Yeah.
My earliest memory
yeah.
is Dr. Renee Richards.
Oh, so she was a tennis player.
Right.
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 She was big in the news.
Yeah. And then when I got into the LGBT community,
so back then
it was only considered LGBT at that
it was
time.
really only lesbians and gays. They didn't really consider bisexuals. Bisexuals were more were really relegated to, you're just kind of straight. You're not quite out yet.
You haven't made up your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It wasn't respected as
right.
its own identity.
Right.
Sadly, and if I may,
yeah, absolutely.
I think a lot of the LGBTQ community still has problems with that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Today, they still struggle with accepting the bisexual community.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
They still say, they're just not sure yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think people
sad.
also say that about non-binary people.
Absolutely.
Right? I don't know about you, but I've always known people who are kind of in between, right?
Absolutely.
Or both, depending on the day
right.
or whatever's going on. And I always, there's always uptight people, right? Who want to control others, who want to say, oh, you're not real, you're fake or whatever. And those people are usually like 99.99% always wrong, and they always look bad. So I wish you all would just give it up, just learn from history how we've done this to people before and just stop doing it.
Maybe become more sure of yourself and not have to take aim at someone that you feel
that's right.
is lesser.
That's right.
Right.
Stop with the finger pointing out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and then I started going to drag shows.
Okay. Yeah.
At the mixed bar that I went to.
Did you dress up?
I didn't. Oh no, I just went to watch.
Okay. All right.
No.
Well, you never know.
Right.
Yeah. Totally.
No, I was too new into all that.
Okay.
So I started going into there, and then started doing some research about drag queens, and then that led to cross-dressers.
Okay.
Which is what the transgenders community were considered at the time.
Yeah. When I was also doing some research when I was a teenager, and most of the things I could find were really negative, though.
Oh yeah.
They were described as being fetishes or mental illnesses. I mean, that was kind of the only resources I could get, and I had to kind of read through the lines. Do I actually fit in this?
Right.
Because it was pathologized.
Right.
I don't ever remember seeing anything that was positive, in fact.
Right.
So how did that affect you? I mean...
It was very difficult. Very difficult. Fortunately, my therapist at the time was very well educated.
Oh, good.
And he was able to give me more positive ideas. I mean, growing up, I always felt like a boy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
growing up, I always felt like a boy. And I climbed trees as high as I could. I shot guns. I shot arrows. I played ball. I swam. I ran.
Yeah.
All that stuff. All the stuff that boys were allowed to
Yeah,
do. I
I
played
pla-
football. I played baseball.
I played football too on ice.
Oh, wow.
Up in
You're
Alaska.
braver than me.
Up in Alaska. Yeah, I was really
Okay.
tiny too, and I would get squished all the time.
Oh, my.
Anyway.
Yeah. So I'm talking to this therapist, and I'm like, I'm a lesbian. I'm going to these bars. I'm watching these drag queens, these men dressing up in dresses. And we had one drag king as well.
Oh, good.
And she dressed up as
Yeah.
a male.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, okay.
Like kind of Victoria kind of thing, like with
No, just,
suits and...
well, yeah, she wore some
Yeah.
suits. Sometimes she just wore jeans and t-shirts.
Okay.
But it got me to thinking, and so I'm talking to this therapist, and I'm telling him, I've always felt like a boy, but everybody tells me I can't be a boy, I have to be a girl. And then, of course, the deadly monthly thing, when I was a kid growing up, was very traumatic.
Sure.
And my mother was like, well, now that you've got that, you can't do this anymore.
Oh, wow.
You have to wear a bra. You have to wear underpants. You have to wear dresses.
So your mother knew,
Oh, yeah.
but then when you had your menses, when that started, then that was the end of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And
Were you like punished or something, or?
I wasn't really punished. I was a very obedient child.
Okay. So you just went along with the program with dresses and okay. Mm-hmm.
When it was absolutely required,
Yeah.
the dresses won. And then going back to my story, I'm telling the therapist this, and he's like, well, what do you want to be? And so I'm like, well, I really want to be a guy. And he's like, well, why don't you? And he's like, well, there's a lot that goes to it. And actually, my insurance at the time would have covered
Really?
parts of it.
Really?
Not 100%,
Okay.
but, with help.
Okay.
And then, of course, I went home, and I'm talking to my family, and they're like, yeah, well, what are you going to do about your kids? I said, I'm going to raise my kids. They said, really? You're going to drag them into that life? And I thought, oh, maybe I better not do this. So I put it back in, wrapped it back up, swallowed it. And as I got older, when I moved back to Oklahoma, even before Oklahoma, St. Louis, I had a lesbian girlfriend at the time, and I asked her what she thought about transgender people. And she's like, well, I really don't know many.
Yeah.
Oh, I really don't know any. She didn't know any. Yeah.
When was this?
In 87.
Okay.
Anyhow, we're talking, and I'm like, well, how would you feel if I was a guy? How would you feel about me if I was a guy?
Right.
Because she's like, oh, I love you, and you're...
And she's a lesbian?
She's a
Okay.
lesbian, yeah. So she's like, oh, I love you. And I said, yeah, but how would you feel if I was a guy? And she's like...
Oh, she kind of cringed at that.
She cringed, and I thought, probably might as well drop this one, too.
Okay.
So, I moved on, had several other relationships. By the time I got to Oklahoma, and started coming to the Oklahoma City clubs, I lived in Shawnee at the time. I came to the Oklahoma City clubs.
Did you connect up with any other trans people during that time? Specifically, I'm talking about in the 90s, because that's when kind of there was more community around it and more awareness.
Yeah, I was still part of the lesbian community.
Okay.
So transgender people weren't allowed.
Yeah, they weren't allowed. That's right. So there would be some places like lesbian centers. Like before they had LGBT centers, there were actual like lesbian centers in some towns, and they actually barred trans women from volunteering because trans women, they want to build community. And so they thought, well, the best way to do that is to serve my own community and to volunteer for these spaces and that sort of thing. And some cisgendered women took that as an invasion, right? Not just another woman coming to volunteer, but as an invasion. So strange.
Kind of a threat.
Yeah, when you look back on that, it's really quite awful.
Right. At that time, I don't recall there being any type of community centers in
probably not
St. Louis.
Probably not here.
By the time I get here to, no.
Oh,
Where I was in Shawnee, absolutely not.
Yeah. Okay, so
Absolutely
St. Louis
not.
didn't have one. Okay.
Not in St. Louis.
There were some on the West Coast. That's where
were
I
there?
was. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think in the Midwest there were any at that point.
Yeah. At that time, too, the the LGBT community with those letters was kind of coalescing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that comes out of the AIDS era as well, because we had to come together and help each other.
Absolutely.
Because the government wasn't helping us at all. In fact, they were doing some bad things.
Yes.
There was some passage of some anti-gay legislation in the 90s.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Never ending.
Yeah, and the LGs didn't want to add the B and the T, especially the T.
Especially the T.
And now where we're at now, they want to take the T off, right? After 25 years. Yeah, there's all these groups now that want to separate trans people from the greater community. Yeah.
I hadn't heard that.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Oh, yes.
I'm kind of, now that we're here, Gloria and I have been together 20 years. We met in church, and we're still very active.
Yeah,
we're still active members in our
Let's
church.
talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gloria is more active in the church than I am. You want to tell them about some of your work in the church?
Well, I want to continue a little bit about your journey into transitioning, because, to be honest, I was a little hesitant at first.
And you guys have been together for 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So around 2000 something?
2004.
2004, okay.
Actually, it was closer to 2005. When he started his... Okay, so he came to me in approximately 2000, I don't know, I want to say 12 maybe, and asked me how I would feel. He told me, he said, I think I might be transgender. How do you feel about this? I said, I don't know that I can handle that.
At that time, we had a very close friend who is still one of our friends that was transgender.
Yeah, she's very big activist in the...
Great.
A huge activist in the Oklahoma transgender...
Is she still active here doing
Yes.
that?
Very.
Great.
Very.
Great.
And her partner was a lesbian, and they got together and became a couple.
Okay.
Her partner was very accepting of her, and they just became like it was from day one natural.
Yeah. Well, I love that. That so they became sort of an example that other people could follow of like tolerance and love and what's possible for people. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But when Jeff came to me at first in about, like I said, it was approximately somewhere between 2010, 2012, and said that he might be transgender, I was like, I don't know that I can handle this. And so he kind of put his...
But what were you afraid of, if you want to say? Because you can't handle it is kind of, that's some dramatic language.
It was the physical part of it.
Okay.
I just wasn't sure that I could handle that part.
Okay. Were you worried about losing community or something like that because you had a lesbian identity?
Yes.
Okay.
It was more, not necessarily losing community, it was losing my own identity.
Okay.
Because I struggle with my own identity.
Okay.
And I had struggled so long. I had originally come out, when I came out back in 94,
Okay.
I had come out as bisexual.
Okay.
And I had struggled with that identity because my first relationship was with a woman.
Yeah.
I spent 4 years with the same woman. And so that identity, I didn't know if I was a lesbian or if I was bisexual. So identity is very difficult for me.
Yeah.
And so him transitioning, I felt like would affect my identity.
Okay. So you still wanted to hold on to a lesbian identity?
I did.
Why wasn't being bisexual an option?
Because I'd fought so hard for my lesbian identity.
Okay.
I think it was because I had fought so hard and lost so much over my lesbian identity.
What did you lose along the way in your fight for a lesbian identity?
My kids.
Oh, God. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I lost my kids in 2005. I lost my kids to DHS. I mean, Zachary
God, really?
aged out of the DHS system at 18.
Oh, my God.
And I still have...
So they took your kids away because you're a lesbian. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a lot. That had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
But I still haven't seen my youngest. He's 20. I haven't seen him since he was 10.
Wow. Wow.
Actually, since he was 8, I guess. 8, since he was 8. And so I've lost a lot over that identity.
Yeah, right.
And I felt like...
And it's a common story, too.
It is.
It is, yeah.
I've heard a lot of these stories.
Yeah, people wonder why LGBT people have to be such vigorous activists and so loud and out there. It's because this kind of crap happens all the time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so when Jeff came to me, then I was like, I don't think I can do this. And so he kind of put it back in a box and he said, okay, then I'm not going to do this. And that was back in, I want to say, was it 2006?
8, no?
8?
It's okay.
Okay, so we met in 2006 at a church.
No, because we're coming up on 20
Cathedral
years.
of Hope, yeah.
Go ahead.
Not for 2 more years. So we met at Cathedral of Hope.
Okay.
Which was my church.
Okay.
And she came with a mutual friend.
What kind of church is this, by the way?
UCC.
Okay, UCC. I love UCC.
We do too.
I love them. Yes.
At the time, they were actually non-denominational, and during the process of our relationship, they became members of the UCC.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So,
Nice.
anyhow, funny story, talking about lesbian
Separatism? Yeah.
So, a group of us from the church had gone to dinner. And we're all sitting and talking and having dinner. And Gloria's talking about her past and her husbands and children and girlfriends. And a friend of mine and I were sitting at the end of this, and we're like, we are not going near that.
Not going near what?
That. We will not be stomping grounds for wannabe bisexual lesbians.
Okay.
I did not realize how ugly that sounded until we started getting involved.
Okay.
And I told her about that story.
So you had your own prejudice about bisexuals.
I did. Even though
yeah,
one of my children is bisexual.
right.
And
you have a male identity.
And I have a male identity.
See, that's how deep that shit is.
That
right?
is.
That's
that upbringing.
That's that damage. That's that damage.
I mean, I was raised in a home where the whites didn't mix with the blacks, didn't mix with the Indians.
Right.
You know, so I'm learning to fight all that.
And also your community, the lesbian community, reinforces this thing where, men are bad, women are good. Like, no gray area there.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and just listening to her stories, she sounded like a mess. quite honestly.
He said he wasn't going to touch me with a 10-foot pole.
Okay.
I did not say
All
that.
right.
So anyhow,
You're very forgiving, I gotta say.
we both are very forgiving.
We are.
Yeah.
It is. It has been a very strong part of our learning each other
Right.
and growing.
Well, that's what a marriage is, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
It doesn't stay magical forever. You got to work on it.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
And I could not have picked a better partner for life.
Awesome.
Maybe she picked me.
For
I think she
life.
I
picked.
stalked him.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
She did.
Now we get the truth.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he put that desire for himself to transition in a box and put it away for me
For several years. Yeah.
And then one day, those friends we were telling you about, the our transgender female friend and her wife, one day the wife, who happens to be a very dear friend of mine,
Okay.
came to me and said, "Hey, I'm starting this trans spouse group."
Oh.
Um,
Oh, she got you.
She did.
She
She said,
gotcha.
"I'm starting this trans spouse group. I thought you might want to join."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Why would I want to join a trans
Right.
spouse
She
group?"
comes back to me and tells me about this friend's invitation to
Right.
the group.
Right. Oh,
And
just
I'm-
an innocent suggestion there.
Right, right. But like the next day,
Yeah.
my transgender friend,
Yeah.
transgender friend,
Yeah.
came to me and said, "I'm starting up a
yes.
transgender support group,
Right. A peer support group.
a
Right.
peer support
Yeah.
group." Yes.
Yeah. I'm so glad that they were looking out for you. That's wonderful. That's a good kind of
They
activism.
knew us.
It is.
They had known us for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd known them. He'd known them since before we had met.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
And
really beautiful. I love that.
my transgender female friend,
Mm-hmm.
and I had several conversations about this.
Yeah.
One of the things that before I came to Gloria and discussed this situation, one day I was at my folks' house, and my sister comes to me, or she's sitting on the couch, and I walk into the front room, and we're talking, and she says, "Did Mom and Dad ever tell you how you came out?" I'm like, "What do you mean? I mean, I wasn't born cesarean. I was a natural birth." No, she said, "How you really came out."
Okay.
And I'm like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah.
And she says, "Well, I overheard a conversation between Mom and Dad, and they were discussing about whether they had made a mistake with the decision they made."
Okay.
I'm like, "What in the world? You were born with both parts."
Oh my. Wow.
And so I'm like,
So you're intersex.
intersex.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the term.
That is the term. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
My sister didn't use that term.
Yeah.
My sister. So
There's some other terms for that.
Yes, there are. Yes, there are.
People don't use those anymore.
no,
Yeah.
no. So I carry on, and then I met up with my transgender female friend, and I said, "I gotta talk to you." I said, "I am in a quandary, and I don't know what's going on." And so I explained to her the conversation, and she's like, she said, "You had regular menses, right?" "Yes." "You had regular breasts, right?" I said, "No problems, you know." She said, "You had 2 children regularly, the regular way. Both of mine were cesarean section, but yeah, the regular way." I'm like, "Yeah." And she said, "You nursed, right?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, it's highly unlikely that you were intersex because a lot of those things wouldn't have worked
Well, I think,
without the proper medication."
I think there's a lot of different kinds of intersex conditions, though. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I found that out later.
Yeah.
I found that out later.
Yeah.
through conversations with other people, the same conversation with
Yes.
other people.
Yeah. It's hard because there's a lot of silence around it.
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously, somebody who doesn't find out well into adulthood
Right.
that this is a possibility, that, you know, there was some medical intervention when you were little, it's often hidden in the records. Those
Right.
records are often closed. Doctors make their own decisions about it.
Well, the hospital that I was born at
Yeah.
burnt
Oh,
down,
no. Oh, no.
and so there were no records to go
Oh,
back to.
no.
So I go
no.
to my mother.
Okay.
My mother, who was my best friend growing up.
Okay.
Okay, I'm like, Mom, I gotta talk to you.
Yeah.
And she said, what's up? I said, how was I born?
Uh-huh.
She said, what do you mean? I said, how was I born? She said, you were just fine. I said, okay. Did I have the anatomy of both a male and female?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, oh no, you were the most feminine baby ever born.
Okay.
Most feminine baby I ever seen.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, okay. I said, well, Mom, even if you had made that kind of decision for me, back in the 60s, your job as a parent is to protect me.
Right.
I said, so if you made that decision to protect me because you didn't want people beating up on me or
Right.
abusing me, or because I was such a freak, or what have you, all the stuff that was said back then.
Right.
I wouldn't hold it against you.
Yeah. Right.
I said,
It's just knowledge.
right,
It's just knowledge.
right.
Yeah.
And so I said, you and Dad at the time may have made the best decision you possibly could have with the knowledge that you had.
Yeah, right.
I said, I don't have a problem with who I am, with the way I turned out. I don't have any problem with the way I turned out. I'm a good person. I have a good heart. You
Right.
guys did a great job in raising me. And I'm just fine the way I am. And she's like, good. Then we never have to discuss this again, do we?
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, Mom.
Yeah. That's exactly. Okay, Mom, I'm done with this conversation. So a couple weeks later, I go to my grandmother.
Okay.
Now, my grandmother was the secret keeper
Okay.
of the family.
Okay.
Okay?
The truth teller, possibly.
Absolutely.
Okay,
She was
great.
the secret keeper of the family. But if you asked her a straight question,
Okay.
a straight out question,
Wonderful.
she's going to give you feedback.
Great. Great.
So I go to Grandma. And I'm like, Grandma, thank you. I say, Grandma, I'm in a bit of a quandary. I need some more information. Did you ever hear anything about me possibly being born with both the male and female anatomy? She's like, heavens no. She said, you were the most female baby I ever saw. You were
no.
so pretty. I'm like, I've heard this song
Yeah,
before.
this sounds like a line.
I'm like, okay, done.
Was a phone call made?
Possibly.
The most female baby I've ever seen.
And it took me probably a year later before I approached my dad.
Okay.
And I approached my dad and I said, okay, Dad. I said, look, I've got a question. I just want an honest answer. I've asked Mom, I've asked Grandma. Now I'm asking you. Was I born with both the male anatomy and the female anatomy? It's like, where would you get such
Yeah.
stuff?
Sure. Right. So his response was some anger.
Absolute anger.
Wow.
And he's like,
Just for asking a question.
yeah, just for asking a question. I mean, he yelled at me.
Right.
And-
that sounds like an unusual thing for him to do.
No,
Yeah.
not really. Oh, no, about that?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, my dad yelled a lot.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Okay.
But when you ask him a straight out question and ask for an honest answer, and he said, I've never heard of any such thing.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, that's the end of this.
It's so weird that people aren't giving you information. It's almost like they feel like it's theirs to hold on to or something. It's so strange. So strange.
My mother and I had another conversation, a very brief conversation. I'm like, Mom, I'm really stuck on this. She said, well, where'd you hear this from? I said, okay, so my sister, your daughter, told me she heard this conversation. Well, you know, your sister's so crazy. You know, she's so caught up in stuff that's not good for her. You can't believe a word she says.
Okay. So now they're lying about your sister. Oh no. This sounds terrible. It just gets deeper and deeper and deeper.
It was terribly, terribly destructive.
Yeah.
Because what I felt for myself was going downhill fast.
Right. And if your parents, if your grandma, she sounds real forthright.
Oh yeah.
Is not giving you information. I mean, that's a falsehood by omission.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.